Well, the deal today was the guy wanted 50 grand for it. Wouldn't take anything less. Family, home, home been in the family for, I think he said 70 years. Got to the house today, and I think HBO, not HBO, one of those, what do they call them? The sitcoms, not the sitcoms, what are reality shows? It's called Hoarders. This house, let me see, this house, I'm trying to think of a kind way to say it. This house was, I don't even think this house could even be on there. I think this house was just, you couldn't see the walls, nothing. The woman was 82 years old and lived there ever since she was a teenager. She's been a hoarder that long. And needless to say, we couldn't see the house, couldn't see the walls, couldn't see anything. He was scared to even go in the house. He stood on the porch. He was like, I'm not going in there. Last time I was here, I was like 16. And this guy was a retired policeman. Needless to say, he wanted 50 grand. But before we left, we got the house on the contract for 15,000.
Now, how did you do that?
Told him it was a piece of junk. The house wasn't worth it. Just started going over what was going to be required to bring the house back, to have it just livable, removing the hoarder, the debris that was in the house was probably 3 grand, 4 or 5 dumpsters, dumpsters just to get rid of that. She had one of those old Andy Griffin. You ever seen the old washer and dryer where you wash the clothes and it has the 2 balls that you string the water out and you do it by hand? It was one of those machines in the house. So it was a lot. It was from that up to 2013 worth of stuff. So we just started talking about the things that the house we're going to need, like upgraded electrical. Someone had broken into the house and stole all the copper pipes, HVAC, the whole HVAC system, heat and air conditioning system. It was an old house. It was abandoned, so it was kind of in deteriorating. It was in the deteriorating mode, so the house is kind of leaning a little bit. I think of course, a house that old, signs of mold. Yogi Bear and his crew was living upstairs, the wilderness, there birds and a little everything up there. And also the house had asbestos in it. So you could see the siding that was falling off, and you could see the asbestos there. So taking all that into consideration, and not to mention, I couldn't really see the bones of the house because of the debris. There's so much junk, and you just had to kind of take a stick and make your path to go through the house. So I just said to myself, let's just go worst case scenario. I'm looking at about 50 grand, but for the other stuff that I can't see, let's say another 20 grand. So let's just be let's be safe and say another 10 for the stuff that I don't know about. So now it's 80 grand to fix the house. Hopefully it'll be less because of the neighborhood the house was in. The resale value was about 150 grand. So the male, when you looking at how you're going to get the money to buy the house, is generally 65% of what the house is worth. So real quick, you just pull out your phone calculator there. House worth 150, 65% of that minus the 80 grand. What's left? That's what I can offer you. It came to about it was about $22,000 that I could have paid for the house, but most people don't take your first offer. So I said, well, let me start small. I said 15. He said, okay. So the only problem with that is that now I'm at 15. I think I could have said 10, because when a person take your first offer, the first thing you think is, I could have went lower. I could have got it for more if it was something that you were trying to sell for a higher point, or something you were trying to get less. Anyway, if a person takes the first offer, the first thing you think is, I should have started lower or higher, whatever side of the fence you're on. So he took the 15, but I wish I would have started at 10, because I think at this point, analyzing it, when I pulled up, he was a retired cop. He lived in, this house is in Prince George's County. This guy lived in Annapolis, Maryland, which is probably 40 minutes away, depending on what part he lived in. So it was an inconvenience for him to come. So taking that, thinking about that, I should have started even lower because it wasn't his house. It was an inconvenience for him to come, and all he kept talking about was getting to the golf course. So all he wanted to do was do Auntie a favor, get rid of the house and move on. And then the house was in such disarray, he didn't want to even go inside of the house. So took all that into consideration. I should have analyzed it a little bit more, and I would have started at 10. But just off the bat, 15. The 50 went out the window. Before I could say anything, he's asking me what I signed. He had power of attorney over his ailing aunt. She was, I guess she was pretty old, naive, or senile, or just not able to do your daily, business transactions. So he had power of attorney for her. So 15 grand, that's how I got it. 15 grand. I just negotiated with him and kind of analyzed what was going on and then started low, and he took the 15. So that's how I got it.
How did you find the house?
I found this house from, there's a word I use, I call it casing the neighborhood, but really what it is, that's my definition. The definition of it is knowing the neighborhoods. If you're going to try to wholesale a certain area, know the area. You got to know the area. You got to know where you're going, what to expect, what the houses look like in the inside from standing outside. So the only way you can know that is you got to get inside as many houses as you can. And after you go into a development, there's only so many different models. You go into this nice, lovely place here. I can bet you the house next door looks just like this lovely place right here. And it's the same scenario when you're in most neighborhoods. There are exceptions, but for the most part, you can look at one house and see that it's a one level with a basement. The house next door, as long as it's not a mega house where you can look at it and see it 3 times the size, 99% of the time it's the exact same square footage as the house next door. The design may be different, but it's the same house. So you got to get in and learn the neighborhoods. And the only way to do that is to get in the neighborhoods that you want to try to wholesale and use as your I call it my playing ground. I call it, I have all these little names for the things that I kind of engage in each day. My playing ground. I case the neighborhoods in my playing ground. My playing ground is the neighborhoods that I go into that my buyers are asking me to go into. My buyers are the people who want to purchase the properties that I get on the contract. I go to the neighborhoods they ask me, and I learn those neighborhoods. Those neighborhoods become my playground. And I case the neighborhood, meaning I patrol the neighborhood. I'm walking around the neighborhood. When you walk a neighborhood and you're looking for vacant properties, you're looking to familiarize yourself with the homes so that you'll know without going inside of it pretty much what the square footage is, and if the house, the only difference is some have a basement, some don't. One may be a 3-bedroom, one may be a 4-bedroom, but for the most part, you gotta know it from standing outside. The only way to know that is to just repeat it over and over again. The theory is if you do something over and over again, then you have no other option but to learn it. This neighborhood, this house, to answer your question, all that to answer your question, how would I find this house? I was walking the neighborhood and left a flyer on the door. The guy called me back. The owner called me, the nephew, the guy who has power of attorney, called back. Took him about 3 weeks and said that him and his auntie were interested in possibly selling that property, but they weren't going to take anything less than 50 grand. My immediate response is, okay, let's get inside and take a look at the property. When can we see the inside? I already knew, because of being in the neighborhood, I already knew what the house was worth. I already knew that what I was going to pay for it, for the most part. I knew it wasn't going to be 50 grand because I already know the neighborhood because I'm casing the neighborhood. But let me get another word for you. His casing is not that. Let me see it. Analyzing, familiarizing myself with the neighborhood. Definition for that for me is casing. I already knew what the house was worth. I already knew what I was going to pay for it generally without seeing the inside of the house. But I knew 50 grand wasn't going to be it. But when talking to a homeowner, the first thing I learned in this business is, for the most part, your initial conversation, give a person, they're holding all the cards. It's their house. Give them what they ask for. In your initial conversation, give them what they're asked for. I've never purchased a home or seen anybody buy a home where everybody's happy with the price over the phone. I've never seen that happen. Not to say that people don't do it, but I've never seen anyone buy a home over the phone and not be weary about it. I've seen some people where they buy houses unseen, and then they're nervous the whole trip there, wondering what they got, hoping, keeping their fingers crossed and knocking on wood. I wouldn't advise that. But in the initial conversation, I always just entertain what the homeowner's asking for. But when we get there, of course, I already have all my numbers in my head. I know the neighborhood probably better than they do, especially if they don't live there. In this case, this particular gentleman, it was just a nephew, hadn't been there in 20 years, according to last he said he hadn't been there in 20 years. So I kind of already know what I'm going to offer for the property. Then when I get inside, that I tweak it from there. Either I'm going to go up or I'm going to go down, depending on the condition of the property. When I got, as I said earlier, when I got to this house was a shop. Looked like somebody just threw a grenade in there and shut the door. So from that point, I knew my price. I had my base price because I know the neighborhood. I learned the neighborhood before I even came. I knew the neighborhood before I came to this house because this is the neighborhood. This is my playing ground. You got to take a section, a neighborhood, and make it your playing ground. The neighborhood that you take is the neighborhood that your buyers that you get tell you where they want to be. So now you want to know the neighborhood, find that neighborhood, and know it inside out. So again, so when someone calls you, there's nothing where you have to sit and try to think and figure out, well, what are these houses worth? How much can they resell for? How much work does it generally take to fix these houses up? You would have the answers. You'd have 70% of the answers before you even get to the house if you already know the neighborhood. So enough of that. The theory is you got to get in and learn the neighborhood. This particular house, again, once he opened the door, it looked like as I said, it looked like someone threw a grenade in there. So the price went down. I already knew that he asked for 50. I knew I wasn't going to offer him anything more than 35, depending on the condition of the house. Taking into consideration, he said the house had been in the family for 70 years. The house had been vacant. I didn't say this. The house had been vacant, according to him, for over 20 years. So to me, anything that you leave out in the elements without any attention is going to slowly deteriorate. So in my mind, the price is going down. But remember, the initial conversation was he wanted 50. Okay, well, let's see the property. I didn't negotiate with him over the phone initially and say, well, I'm not going to give you 50. The conversation probably wouldn't have went any further than that, and we probably would have never met. So I'm not going to steer him away by telling him I'm not going to give him what he asked me for initially, because I'm not trying to buy the home over the phone. Got him there again. We went over some of the things that were wrong with the property. How do I know what's wrong with the property? Not being a contractor is going out, looking at the houses with a licensed contractor, standing over their shoulder, learning the contractor's terminology. When they look at what does it cost to rehab the average kitchen? Average 5x7 kitchen is 10 grand to fix the average kitchen. If the kitchen's a little bit bigger, then it's a little bit more than 10 grand. It's a little bit, if it's smaller, then it's a little bit less than 10 grand. But that's a rule of thumb. And you learn that by going into your neighborhood, your playground homes with a licensed contractor, so that you could standing over their shoulder, so that you'll get familiarized with what it called reconstruction, rehab cost is. So when I walked into this house, I'd done it so many times before. When I walked into this house, I already knew what it was going to cost to bring this house back to life. I already knew. I'm looking at the kitchen. I knew it was going to be 10 grand. I'm looking at the bathrooms. I knew the bathrooms were going to be 4 grand. And then you just multiply that by how many bathrooms you have, how big the kitchen is, or how small the kitchen is, or how big the living room is. So all these numbers just kind of, anything that you do over and over again, these numbers just kind of roll in your head. But because this particular property was couldn't see it, as I said, it was a hoarder house. You couldn't see it, so I got to be safe and sorry. I know I'm looking at it. There's 3 bedrooms. I'm sorry, there's 3 bathrooms. There's one kitchen. It's 50 grand to fix it because I can't even see it in this house now. It's 80. I got to be safe. You got to have yourself a little cushion. So to answer your question again, I don't know if I went all the way out to the left, but to answer your question, I put a flyer on this guy's house. I already knew from putting flyers on the neighborhood, I already knew the average price of every home in the community. I just hadn't seen the inside. So looking at the inside was going to determine the final offering price. And never again, never try to buy a house over the phone. Always at least, try to get at the kitchen table and with them at the particular property. Look them in the eye and give them an honest price based on the condition of the property that you and them are standing there looking at. So that's how I found the house. A guy called me and we negotiated today.
Now, do you run any risk with a house that's that bad of a buyer not wanting it?
Well, the object is to limit your risk down to nothing, if you possibly can. Being a real estate investor, I cover myself. I'm not a real estate agent. I don't have a licensed agent standing over my shoulder to tell me what I can do, what I can't do, and what I should do, what I shouldn't do, or protecting me, saying if you did this, this is what may happen, or if you don't, dot your I's and cross your T's, or you sign on the line without getting a contract. I don't have anybody to tell me to do that, or just stand over my shoulder to guide me. So I have to dot my I's and cross my T's. I have a contract for the homeowner to sign, which has clauses in it that will allow me to walk away from any deal at any time, keeping my earnest money deposit, my EMD. When you sign a contract, the contract happens, and generally in most states, in order for it to be valid, there has to be consideration. Consideration generally is money, and money is what we call an EMD, earnest money deposit. That's generally up that's up for grabs if you offer to purchase someone's house and then you renege for whatever reason. You can't get the money. You come back and you change your mind. You think this is too much of a project for you to take on. You want to walk away from the deal. What you're leaving on the table is your earnest money deposit, your EMD. Well, the contracts that I put together allows me to keep my EMD, my earnest money deposit, if I decide I change my mind for any reason. I decide I don't want to buy this house anymore. I decide I've seen another house up the street that was a better deal, and I want to take my EMD and give it to the next customer, next homeowner. I've always leave myself an out. For every door that you walk in, always make sure there's an exit. That exit is one of the clauses you want to use is that this contract is only valid upon inspection by your licensed contractor. By me being an investor and I'm talking to the homeowner at the kitchen table, there's nothing I can't say or they want to say. There's no set ABC set of rules that we have to follow. As long as we're of legal age, Everybody has in sound mind that, everybody know A, B, C, or one, two, three, they can count. We can write up the agreement on the back of their light bill on a napkin. As long as two parties agree, we're good. So that concept that you need a real estate agent, that you can't do this without a real estate agent, they got to sign these all of these lengthy contracts. That's not necessarily the case. But any contract that you sign or anything that you get into, I would I'd make sure you dot your I's and cross your T's and know exactly what you're doing. You can get advice from a real estate agent. Now, you don't necessarily have to work with that real estate agent. I would pay them for their information, their guidance. You can work with a title company. Title company can help you put a contract together, or you can just Google it. You can Google a contract and just read it, and it'll tell you the steps. It's not everything technology today. My contracts that I put together, and the reason I say Google it because that's where I got mine from. I just Googled it, and then I Googled it and took 2 or 3 contracts, put them together. I have my own contract now. I put in, you can and in Googling it, it allowed me to, I was able to view many contracts. And viewing many contracts, I came up with the idea of having clauses in it to protect my EMD. Again, as long as the two consenting adults agree, then you have an agreement. I don't lost your question now. I'm talking so much, I forgot your question.
No worries. You mentioned actually the EMD. How do you determine how much of an EMD you offer to a homeowner?
Well, the EMD is determined by the two parties that are sitting there. Because I am presenting the contract, and whenever, this goes with not only in real estate, but with anything, whenever you present or someone presents a contract to you that's already printed out and ready to go, best believe the contract is in the person who's presenting it, it's in their favor. The EMD that I present when I'm presenting my contract, I put up as minimum of an EMD as I possibly can. You hear some people say you have to put up $5,000. You have to I've heard wild numbers. I've heard generally about $2,500. Well, my EMDs are $100. I'll put up no more than $100. The $100 that I put up, I also work with the title company that they hold the $100. I don't give the homeowner anything other than a signed contract saying the EMD, earnest money deposit, the $100 in consideration for this contract is being held at the title company. Also in my contract, there are clauses that say that I can come back and change my mind upon having an inspection of the property, or if I'm going to borrow the money from a lending institution, it's going to be upon inspection from them. If they don't like the deal, they'll say, they'll give me a letter, they'll deny me the loan. So then I'll pass that on to you. That will then terminate the contract. Or again, I can come and say to you, hey, you mean my contractor, we viewed your property and it's not what I thought it was. I changed my mind. It's not going to work. I'm denying, I am closing out this contract based on inspection. Those are clauses in the contract that you want to put in your contract. That something as simple as this contract is whatever. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. These contracts are valid or avoidable or voided upon inspection of the property or my financial lending institution. Either way, but you have a clause that every contract, you're right, there's a starting point and then there's an ending point, but always have an exit. Your ending point is always your exit, and you always exit with what you enter with, your money.
Okay. you ever lost an EMD then?
Um, I've never lost an EMD. I've never lost an EMD. Well, I'm trying to think. I've never lost any. I've been fortunate enough to never really lose an EMD, earnest money deposit, because of a contract. Because we've always had the weasel clauses. I'm sorry, we call them weasel clauses. We've always had a clause in it where it always protects the EMD. Never fall in love with the deal that the seller has the upper hand. You know, there's only so many steps. Let's just use 10. Any deal you go into, make sure you hold at least 7 of them. If there's no such thing as 50-50, because you know the homeowner's walking away with what they want, you're walking away with what you want. You would think that that's 50-50, but to me there's no such deal as a 50-50 deal. I'm going to buy this house, fix it up, and resell it and make 3 times what the homeowner sold me the house for. So is that 50-50? It's not. So to me, I don't go into a deal unless I'm holding 70% or 7% of the deal is in my favor. And out of that 70 or 7%, if you want to use whatever grade category you want to use, my EMD is part of that 70%. I'm not going to go into the deal where I have anything at risk. I'm not going to win. When I'm making my initial offers to you, I am making my offer with, a $10,000-$20,000 cushion, just in case you didn't tell me that there was a fire behind the wall in the basement downstairs. As soon as we take the drywall down, we see all the studs are burnt up, and so I have a cushion for all of that. So again, 70% of every deal I go into, I make sure I'm winning 70%, and that starts with the negotiating price and me being able to cover my EMD and walk away with it if I want. So I don't fall in love with any deal, because it's just too many houses out, too many deals to fall in love with a deal and think you have the best of you got diamonds and pearls when you open it up. It's just nothing but rocks.
So how many deals do you think are actually out there? I mean, if everybody's out trying to do what you do, what's the likelihood that everybody can actually find a deal like you just did today?
Well, let me put it in another way. There's enough for everyone. Anytime you travel, just count the number of houses you pass, or another way of looking at it. For everyone who wants a car, using this as an example, there's a car out there for you. If you want it, it's there. You just got to go get it. There's a lot of real estate investors, but there's not many that are making any moves or noise. I wouldn't let other people intimidate you, get you intimidated. Or you come into a room and you see this, for instance, if you go to a seminar and you see 300 people in the room, and you're looking around and you're saying, oh, how can I compete with these people? There's too many in here. There's too many people. It's not enough for everybody. You can rest assured that out of the 300 plus people that are in the room, just a rule of thumb, 90 to 95% of them will fall off within 14 days of any seminar or anything. Most people fall off. Most people just don't have that kick, that tiger in them to take them to the next level. If you go into this intimidated, thinking that, and just not just with real estate, with anything, you go into it intimidated by the competition, you've almost shot yourself in the foot before you get started. So to look around and think that, well, there's so many people into this, I don't know if I can get in, and I don't know if this is for me. It's just so much competition, and this person seems so much more knowledgeable than me. But you shot yourself in the foot. You're a wounded soldier, and you just ain't gonna make it off the battlefield. So don't trash that thought that there's not enough for you or there's no room for you. There's plenty. It's just like a car. If you want it, there's plenty of cars out there for sale. Some people, oh, I can't afford. There's a car for you. Look for it. There's a house you can always fit in. Just you've got to be just a little bit stronger than the last person. But rule of thumb, most people with anything that they start that's new, they're intimidated. Some people are shy. Some nervous. Some are quite erratic. You just got to grab the saying I just created. You got to just grab, when you jump into this or anything, you just got to be prepared to grab the bull by the horns, take it on. You're going to get knocked down, pick yourself up, brush your shoulders off, and keep moving.